Good evening, Pantheon fans, and welcome back yet again to another community watch party for the Pantheon developer stream. We're back with another month. It's been another month, and this one is going to be a little bit different. But before we get to that, this is the pre-show. This is where we just hang out and catch up on what's been going on since the last time we were all together. It's always nice to see the same familiar faces in the early bird crowd here. Zonk, Kalok, Jeeper, Lucilla, Goofy Warrior Guy. What's up, everybody? Tonight, in about 25 minutes, the developers of Pantheon are going to be holding an AMA, which may be the first on stream anyway. This is a little bit new. I don't remember them doing anything like this. So that's kind of interesting. They're going to be taking questions directly from their Twitch chat live and answering them on stream. So I'm curious to see how that goes, and hopefully we get some good solid answers out of that. Get some answers to some of our burning questions. Now, to be honest, I'll just put this out there now. It seems from what I've seen that typically it's better for everybody involved when they take questions ahead of time, kind of like what they've been doing with the developer roundtables. Have people submit questions ahead of time, give them an actual a week or so to actually think about how they want to answer that question, come up with a good answer for it, and then put it out there. I find that has been working lately, but we will see what we get off the cuff. Maybe they'll slip and we'll get some extra beans that we weren't supposed to, because this is live. You can't take it back once it's out there. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, this is different. This is different. So again, in about 23 minutes now, we'll switch over to their stream. And I will I'll let them talk as much as possible, of course, because that's the important part. But I'll chime in with my thoughts. I'm sure I will have many, and we can discuss it afterwards as well. But in the meantime, what's up with you guys? What have you been up to? Anything interesting? Kalok got a new coffee maker this week. Gotta put some beans in that coffee maker, that's for sure. Hopefully we will be showered with beans tonight. That would be good. That would be a good thing. It's one thing that I've been talking with some people lately about is how it seems like there's quite a few topics about Pantheon that have still been just kind of like left hanging, left a little inconclusive, and so it would be nice. It would be nice if we could get some more solid answers to at least a couple of those topics. Some of those questions that have just been kind of lingering for a long time. Now, again, the game still is in development. Development is a very iterative process, so it's understandable to some degree. But at some point, people do expect just to have something that they can count on for sure that isn't subject to change anymore. We hear it's not set in stone. Sometimes we hear that too often and gets desensitized to it, and it kind of loses its meaning. It's there's good reason to say that, but I'm curious. That's something that I personally will be paying attention to throughout the night. Is people can only have so much tolerance for being like, well, this is kind of our thoughts on what we would like to do, but you know, if it's subject to change, etc., etc., that kind of it loses its meaning after a while. So it's something to keep an eye on tonight. Hey, Ziplocks. Azith for Azuth? Azith? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Jothany. Heidi ho to you, my friend. Welcome. Thanks for joining. You guys are early. It's a good thing, though. We're just chilling. Lucilla asks, how am I? I'm doing great. It's been excellent, in fact, because for those of you who don't know, I launched a website 2 days ago on the 9th, which is very exciting. As it says, Azuth. I don't even remember. You said it's the second way I said it. I don't even remember what. I don't even remember the second way I said it. I think Azuth. We're gonna go with Azuth. Anyway, yes, the library of Pantheon.com. You can head over to there right now. It is live, and that's just very satisfying. Very satisfying feeling. It's been something that myself and Goofy Warrior Guy, who's in chat, and a few other people, we've been working on it for the past 5 months or so. So quite a bit of work has gone into it. If you haven't checked it out yet, head on over there right now and take a look around. There's quite a bit to it. But for those of you who don't know, the Library of Pantheon, we have taken everything that the developers have released publicly throughout all the years of Pantheon's development, and we have cataloged it, categorized it, sorted it in reverse chronological order and a number of other different ways, and put it all in one place, rather than being spread out across the internet where nobody is incredibly time consuming to track it all down. It's all in one place there. It's searchable. And if you go there, I hope you spend some time and you learn something from it, because that's what it's all about. Again, it's made by the community. It's not associated with VR in any way. We made it as the community because, again, as the community, we know the sort of things that the community wants to know and see. And so we built it with that in mind from the ground up. So I'm really proud of how it came out. It's going to be around for a long time, so I hope you find it useful. And if you have any feedback on it, if you have checked it out and you have maybe an idea for a way to make it better, maybe you found something that was broken about it, please reach out to me on any of my platforms. In fact, there is a contact form on the website itself, but feel free to reach out to me, because we're going to continue building on it and improving it. Because just like an MMO, you know, Brad McQuaid always said that launching an MMO is like having a baby. You know, you don't just pop the baby out and then just abandon it, be like, okay, you know, have fun. It's something that needs to be nurtured. And I think that's the case for pretty much launching anything, any product, anything, any creative endeavor that you work on. Kalox says you need to start releasing the Baz Flash on TikTok. Yeah, I've thought about that a little bit. It's a good point, because obviously TikTok is just insane and is taking off, has been taking off for quite a while, and it's not slowing down. I had a TikTok account actually for a while, and I did release the Baz Flash on TikTok. I released a few episodes on TikTok. Then when the whole thing about the concern over privacy with it being like a Chinese owned company, I deleted my account around that time. Not just for that, that was part of it, but also just the fact that it gets difficult to juggle multiple platforms at once. Like that it just becomes another platform that I need to learn how to, optimize, because the Baz Flash in particular, it is designed to be shared on mobile, and admittedly TikTok as a platform is pretty ideal for the Baz Flash style. And again, I'm always intrigued by ways to bring Pantheon information to places where it doesn't really exist, and trying to blaze new trails and pioneer new avenues for people to learn about Pantheon. I think that's really, really interesting, and TikTok is certainly a candidate for that. But each platform works differently, and even though I can just record an episode of Baz Flash and post it in multiple places, like the way that you post it is going to be slightly different on each one. So like Facebook has its own process. On Twitter, it's got like character requirements, and Instagram, it's going to be a little bit different, and Instagram's a little bit more hashtag focused, and all sorts of different ways for content to be discovered. And yeah, I guess I just with TikTok, I think it just didn't feel super worth it to me as having another platform that I need to add to my checklist of things to upload to. That doesn't mean that I won't revisit it. I might, especially since I recently converted the Baz Flash over into like a vertical format, so it is more suitable to be viewed on a phone screen, really pushing that mobile, because and I did that because of YouTube Shorts, which is basically just YouTube's way of trying to catch up to TikTok. It's basically TikTok on YouTube, and so I did make that change, and that's going pretty well. YouTube Shorts is actually quite nice as like a discovery tool, and I haven't noticed, as far as it reaching new audiences just by being a short as opposed to like a regular YouTube video, I actually haven't noticed that much of a difference yet. Maybe a little bit, maybe a slight increase, but it's nothing too dramatic. But ever since I converted it over to a YouTube short, I haven't looked into putting it on TikTok, and maybe I should, because it's been a little while since I've been on TikTok. I think TikTok did change ownership now, so enough of things maybe have changed that maybe it'd be worth looking into. It's a long-winded answer to say maybe I'll look into it. Hypercrush says, I've been having fun poking around the new site. Glad to hear it. That's what it's there for. Yeah, it was speaking for myself. I don't know if Goofy would agree, but I found it quite enjoyable to work on. It was very satisfying, very fun. Yes, it was a lot of work. It took a long time, sometimes a lot of just repetition and just, watching long videos, but no, it's fun. Reasonable person says, going to make a documentary on Pantheon once it's live. Yes, actually, this is something I don't know that I've ever talked about that. But since you asked, yes, that actually I've already thought of that, and I figured that the best way to go about that would be to work on it as the game is developed and as it is happening, rather than waiting until the game is released and then having to like go back and be like, okay, trying to remember all this history. It's a lot easier to just keep track of it as it happens, and rather than relying on memory and having to go back and research. So yes, that actually is already in the works. I'm, again, because that's still pretty far in the future. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it, but yeah, that is going to happen. That's going to be my capstone project, so to speak. 100%. Azuth says, I love the site. It really shows how far Pantheon has come. I'm really glad to hear that, because that was one thing that I really wanted to kind of shine through with the site, because that was a realization I particularly had while working on it. And that's something that I think we as a community need more of, that perspective, that really, like, if you really zoom out and really see the big picture and how far the game has come, it really makes you look at things differently. And it's actually really quite encouraging and amazing. It's an amazing testament to the sheer willpower that the developers have had to even get it to where it is. It's really easy to get lost in the details, in the right now, get tunnel vision, as just focusing on what's happening right now, and maybe getting frustrated because if you're just looking in a really narrow time frame, it might seem like things aren't really getting done. But if you really zoom out, you'll see a very different picture, and again, hopefully the library helps with that. Hey Thorndeep, thanks for joining us. We're about 8 minutes away now from the AMA. Kelek says somebody should write a social media management tool that can facilitate pushing content to multiple platforms. That does exist. I haven't looked into it a whole lot, to be honest, and again, maybe I should, but I know Hootsuite is one example of that. I don't know if it works for publishing videos to YouTube. I know it's like a social media for social media managers and stuff. It's like a marketing tool so that you can post things, whether pictures or text or whatever, post it on multiple platforms simultaneously. So I know that's a thing, and it seems to work pretty well, but yeah, I might be reaching a point pretty soon where I'll have to actually seriously look into something like that, because I think, as a rule of thumb, it's best to try to be in as many places as you can. Again, I at the end of the day, it's not even just about growing my brand or whatever. It's, I realize how many people out there haven't even heard of Pantheon before, don't even know it exists, and that's a fascinating thought to me, as somebody who has been extremely aware of Pantheon for years now. It's always a fun thought exercise for me to put myself in the shoes of somebody who has never even heard that it's existed. That I know they're out there, and I think that's an important thing to kind of chase after, because again, in my mind, at the end of the day, we all just want to play Pantheon together, and if I can introduce it to somebody who is really interested in it and they just had never had the chance to hear about it, if I can if I can facilitate that and they end up going to pledge or whatever just because of how much it resonates with them, then the launch gets here that much faster. That's really what it's about. But yes, when it comes to it, like I said, juggling is the best analogy that I can think of, because it's sure, juggling 3 balls isn't that bad, and 4 might even be possible, but it reaches, I don't know, you reach this threshold where just adding 1 more on suddenly makes it exponentially more difficult. Kalex says, thinking about TikTok more to drive audiences to your YouTube and Twitch channels, commercials, if you will. Yeah, that's definitely a legit approach. Just kind of, it's like as like an outreach tool, you know. That's definitely, is you just kind of like that hooks them in, and then, you know, there's a lot more to learn on YouTube or wherever else. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. That's kind of what my Instagram is currently, to be honest. As a platform, I'm not a huge fan of Instagram, or rather, maybe I should just say I just don't understand Instagram as well as I understand things like YouTube and Twitter. I feel really comfortable on Twitter. Actually, I know a lot of people hate it, and that's fine. But it just makes sense to me personally. So that's what I tend to gravitate more. I'm more active on Twitter, but Instagram, you know, obviously it's a huge platform in and of itself. And so, you know, if I can throw something out there with relative ease, and it, you know, it catches the eye of even, you know, a small amount of people, but just at least kind of plant that seed in their mind, that's worth doing. Absolutely. Goofy Warrior Guy says TikTok didn't get totally bought, just sold 20% to Oracle and Walmart. Really? Is that true? Walmart partly owns TikTok now? Jeez, it just keeps getting weirder. John Wayne says, loving the library. Glad to hear it, man. The library seems like the perfect tool for posterity. Yeah, that's another big part of it too. It's just about preserving the history again, because it's like that stuff, it gets lost very, very easily. And I think that's that would be really unfortunate, because again, like, when it's going to be even more amazing when Pantheon does get released, to have that complete perspective, to at that point, you know, with that in mind, then when you look back and see where it all began, it's already quite amazing, but that's really going to be the cherry on top, and that's really going to be an amazing moment to look back on. And so yeah, again, just kind of trying to plan ahead for that, I think that's really important. Yeah, VR had so many ups and downs early in the beginning. Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it's just it's the miracle is that Pantheon is even still going at all today, you know, let alone the momentum that they are picking up now, even, you know, after everything that's happened, and they're still finding ways to gain momentum. Like, that's it's a one of a kind story. That's really what keeps me on the edge of my seat, and what keeps me engaged, is that it's like the story that we're watching unfold is something that we may never see again. This like, you know, basically ragtag group of guys at the beginning that had this crazy idea to make a full-scale MMO starting with no money. Like, that just doesn't like, no money like that's legitimately insane, and that doesn't happen, and it's crazy to watch it unfold. And with that, they just went live. So before switching over here, I'm gonna refresh, because you don't need to watch an ad. Real quick though, did you guys hear about one thing I wanted to talk about? Maybe they'll talk about it tonight, but Unity bought Weta Workshop, or at least the assets from them, which was the company that did the special effects for the Lord of the Rings franchise and other movies, I'm pretty sure. And so Unity, which Pantheon is built on Unity now has access to all those tools, which is kind of an insane thought. You know, this happened very recently, and it's hard to kind of extrapolate like what that actually means when it comes to Pantheon, but something interesting I thought would be worth noting. Let's switch on over to the AMA.
Hey everybody, and welcome to November's developer live stream for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Tonight, I'm excited to host a AMA. For those that don't know what that means, that's an Ask Me Anything session with a lot of I don't know what we call you guys, the some of the core developers. We don't have everybody here. There's still some great people who couldn't make it tonight.
I've never seen
we should be able to
Taham
cover a lot of
on
topics tonight, get a lot of answers out there.
Screen before.
So before we even begin, I will introduce everybody.
He's younger than I thought. Go ahead and
start firing those questions into the chat because we're going to need them, or else it's going to be a very interesting chat with all of us just looking at each other and telling stories. So go ahead and fire those questions in, and we'll have those ready, and we'll start going through those quick. But I want to get through here, and we're going to introduce everybody so that everyone knows who they're asking questions to. But more importantly, we're going to give a little bit of a little background on what their main focus is for anybody who might be newly discovering us as well, so you know who to maybe throw those questions out or what questions might work. So let's go ahead and start with Chris Joppa Perkins, our creative director. Chris, if you want to say hi and kind of tell people where your main focus is, which should be pretty interesting.
Well, hello, and I'll keep it short and sweet. I would say creative director, my primary focus is overseeing the development of the game. So I'm keeping tabs on the creative side of the house, which involves the game design, the art, the lore, and the audio, and really everything that fits in that category. And then also, making sure that the programming side of the house knows what our ultimate goals are and understands our systems adequately and knows exactly how we need those built. I am the lead game designer as well, and so there is a lot of focus spent on really shepherding the overall kind of design of the game. We're going to hear from one of our game designers tonight, Adam, and obviously there's more than just me feeding into that, but it's a really fun thing that I get to do. It's an honor. And excited to have you here too, Tony. It's pretty cool having you on camera for the first time. So
it's been a while.
Excited to see how it goes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Next up is Adam Tehom Mostel. I put a little bit of
hey guys
fancy on your name there. Yeah, please introduce yourself. Let people know what you're working on.
Yeah, hey guys, I am Adam, or Taham, as those of you who've hung out with me on Discord a little bit may know me. I am a game designer as well as a associate producer on the team. Right now my focus is primarily on our updates to our combat system. So everything that goes into that, classes, ability design, the combat pacing, resource management, it's a whole lot of stuff that goes involved there. Also the other side of that, which is our NPCs, so NPC design and counter design, abilities, traits, dispositions, and of course also the perception system that is also in my wheelhouse as well. And then on the production side, I'm also helping to manage our timeline and our roadmap and making sure that we're building this game and getting it out into your hands.
That's a lot of fun questions to ask Adam for his first video appearance on a stream. So definitely have some fun with that, everybody. Excited. Thank you, Adam, for jumping on there. And then via voice, we have two. And I don't know if Kyle thought he was going to get away from this nickname. He's not. He said his nickname on the team here is EG, which is really hard for a GM to report or anybody to report because it's all I's and J's. And
I'm sure he did that on purpose.
Kyle Olson, our lead programmer. Kyle, if you want to talk to everybody about what you're working on, introduce yourself.
Funny enough, I realize now you actually spelled it wrong in the overlay too.
Did I?
No. Yeah, you messed up the I's and the J's.
Oh, is it all? Is that really?
No, I-I-J-J-I. Come on, man.
Nobody who knows. They can't read it anyway.
Yeah, it's not. That's the whole point. It's not to be readable. Anyway, so I am lead programmer, like you said. I've been focused mostly on gameplay programming, network code, and kind of steering our technology decisions and choices that we make in the right direction.
Awesome. I think that's a humble way of saying he does a lot. I think everybody here does a lot. That's the fun part about tonight. So awesome. Thank you, Kyle, for getting away from the computer. Well, technically, he's probably coding while we're doing this. I wouldn't be surprised. So thank you for giving us some time. I know the community loves chatting with you about this stuff. So awesome.
Yeah, no worries.
And finally, last but certainly not least, a huge crowd favorite. And we're going to try to protect him from Joppa tonight. But we have JN, and I think it's a Stolame. I think that's the way I'm going with that one. Gerhardt, our lead writer. Welcome, JN. Thank you for being here tonight. If you want to let people know what you're working on and what you've worked on so far.
Thank you, Minus. And I don't think anyone can protect me from the aggro radius that Chris has on me. So I do lead most of the narrative content when it comes to kind of the themes, places, people, and all that stuff. I think everything we do is pretty iterative, though, and so I at least plant the seeds and help guide that, whether it's the idea for a zone, beginning to shape some of the look and feel with someone like Jared Pullen, but most of the written work that we've done, whether that's in-game or published publicly, I do, and just generally lead the narrative content for the game. My title is lead writer, but we all kind of, as you've seen, we all kind of cross streams with different things. So I assist with world building when that's needed, and help to keep those things on track and give them a reason for existence as much as we can.
Awesome.
Everybody got a notepad ready.
I always, since I've been here and even before, I really try to suck up to JN. It's somebody I really want to make sure I am on the good side of, because I'm really working hard to get that dark mirror out there as official. So we'll see what happens. But enough. Chris,
talking about a losing battle right off the bat.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. So everybody, I hope that all the voices are good for you in Twitch chat. If anybody out there is having a hard time hearing anything, please just let me know. I can adjust it on the fly, but I think everybody's sounding good. So I'm not going to waste any time joking around or being minus. We got a lot of questions to go through here. You guys are already doing a great job. Keep them coming. We want to try to answer everything we can. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question here is from Nagasaki. And he says, to date, we've only had one general testing session with the monk. It seems that the tester's general feedback was that the monk's melee DPS was actually low, and that the LAS, or that's our limited action set, might possibly be too restrictive compared to other classes. And he's referring to the strike kick icons taking 2 spots on the bar. And for those that don't know, they are changeable. You know, we haven't seen the depth of it yet, but changeable attacks that you can select if you want that will add passive attacks into your combat. So he asks, has VR made any changes to the class to improve Monk's DPS since then? Do you expect to? Or what do you think of the overall Monk feedback that's been given by the community? I don't know who wants to take that one.
I can take a stab at it.
Whoops, my bad.
So yes, I mean, absolutely. The monk is, ultimately every class is actually seeing revisions and improvements as part of this combat update that we're doing. A lot of that is, of course, based off some of the feedback that's come through from our players. A lot of that has been just based off our own observations, doing measurements to, make sure the class is actually meeting our goals for the game.
Just making sure you're still
monk
awake.
Is definitely one of those. So I can say, without going into too much detail, that their DPS options should become much more in line with many of the other melee DPS classes. And also with regards to those, I believe we call them active passives in the past, like our strike and our kick. There is currently the goal is to have that modified so that those will be they'll still retain their passive states, but they'll also be able to be used as active abilities as well. So that will help with some of that LAS management that's being asked about here. Now, that's also part of going into emphasizing, the choices that come into play when players are, putting things on their bar and the tactics that they're using. So, do they sacrifice having that passive active by using the active ability on that passive? We need to come up with a better name.
Do you really call it passive active?
Yes, that's one of the choices that we're definitely looking to improve upon, among many others.
Awesome. Anybody else have anything on that one? That's good. You dropped a bean right away. You're getting us started well here. He knows. Adam's like, yep, I'm going up that
Oh, yeah.
list. I'm going to go up that list.
I tried to find a can of beans as a prop, but no such luck.
Just a can?
Just a can.
John was like, don't worry, I got you covered. All right, so the next question, and by the way, for those that don't know me, I am going to butcher your usernames on Twitch. Just know I'm trying hard. The next one here is from Valeru 2022, and we knew this one was coming, and I love it, and I will actually give a small answer on this. When is the next PA? So next, they're asking when the next testing session is. So here's what we can say. It is not locked down just yet, but stay tuned for an announcement very soon on this. So that's all I'm going to be able to say there. Anybody else want to add anything to that without getting in trouble? I think we're good. All right, so next here from
Nobody
Doug
wants to touch that.
27 says, can you explain how the druid will play in regards to the fox and the indirect healing? So, Chris, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we would be saying anything at this point differently from what we've already kind of put forward. I think a lot of what Adam just described can be thematic for what we would say about a lot of the classes, in that you're going to continue to see evolutions of the classes that we have shown so far. And that means that the druid, while still, on track for the way that we've presented it and the idea of designing it around indirect healing, using Hirode as this kind of extension of themselves, that is still the case, but not super ready at this point to talk about any distinct evolutions that may have come along the way. But the idea, again, is just that each of the healing classes would have their own playstyle, would have a bit of their own flavor in how they do what they do. And for the druid, we're looking to capture something that is a little different. And I'm really excited about their kit. I'm really excited about how unique that class is, the potential for the uniqueness of that class and the experience of playing it. So really excited to get that one in.
Now I'm gonna try to help out when I can here, Twitch chat. So Chris, I'll ask you one thing that maybe is that you kind of alluded to there with that might make people feel a little bit better. Is I know that a lot of the Hirode abilities were removed when the class page updated. So what you're saying is that that general idea that's kind of always been there for that character that's going to be so unique to Druid is still there. Druids can still expect that interaction that they kind of heard about back when the class was announced. Awesome. I think that's big. I think some people were worried. So hopefully that helps people a little bit. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so the next one here is a real Fazul says, I'm seriously worried about every MMORPG becomes a race to the top. He says MMORPGs were never that before. How do we look to defend against that as a team?
Man, what a question.
Yeah, this is real.
That's a good one.
How much time do we have?
I'm thinking about so many of the conversations we've been having lately, even, and how many things could feed into that.
Got a good one, I think.
Go ahead, man. Yeah,
relevancy. So in most MMOs these days, you race to the end game because the leveling up process is sort of irrelevant. You earn things that don't really matter. Your gear gets replaced. The things that you can farm aren't relevant at end game because they're replaced by the newest type of material. So there's just this gap that you're trying to cross to get to the real part of the game. Whereas it used to be that leveling up process was part of the actual game. I think that's sort of what's been lost.
Adam, I know you've got some.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean that really I think covers it pretty well. That's definitely been my experience. I remember playing games and I'm just even if I had goals that I could achieve, I could farm a dungeon for a piece of gear, and I just wouldn't because I would out-level it more quickly than it would take me to farm it, and then I would just go back and farm it myself anyway, if I really wanted the appearance or something, and it just kind of lost its value in that sense. So I think that's kind of a big part of it, is just making sure that the content and the rewards for that content have relevance throughout the lifespan of the game. That, and I think also just making it fun, right? I think that's the other big thing, is that there's a lot of people who feel like the game only begins when you get to the end, right? The rating is the fun part. The class kits only develop when you get to the end game. NPCs are basically tutorials. Like that's part of why raiding is the only fun part, because there's no complexity to the NPCs that you fight until you reach that point. Those are all things that we definitely want to design against. We definitely want to make sure that the content is there and the content is engaging and challenging and fun. Whether you're talking, I don't know about level 1, maybe level 4 or 5, but definitely beginning in that early game all the way through quote unquote end game.
Oh boy. I'll just key off of something that Adam said. And my hope is that most of the people who follow our development somewhat closely are familiar with us saying that a lot. Like, is it fun? Is this actually fun? And it's a topic that I've been thinking of quite a bit lately. And like I said, we've had a lot of internal discussions around this. But if you really stop and think about it, how many MMOs are we playing? How much MMO game playing are we collectively as MMO game players doing today, where we could say we're actually having fun? Like I am actually enjoying my time spent in investing in this experience. And I don't mean the very familiar hooks of progression or the same kind of experiences we can have with like mobile games, for example, where we just feel like we need to log in compulsively because there's new things to get that day and we've just feel hooked. But I mean, like when have you actually had fun? And it's a really important question in this kind of framework of developing Pantheon and how we want the game to be set apart and different. And part of that really is asking that question and engaging with that question all the way through. And so for us, how we differentiate and how we actually prove ourselves to be different in this regard is how we're answering that question, or at least that's a really big part of it. How are we answering the question of, is Pantheon fun to play throughout the experience, the level range? A lot of that comes in kind of the breadth and depth of activities that there are to do, the different kind of shades and colors of progression that players can experience in playing Pantheon. The idea that if you race to end game, for example, just in levels, you are going to be lacking so much of the breadth and depth of your character's development that you really need to most fully engage with the world and have the world open up to you appropriately. So there's a lot of things that go into that, answering that question. We'll leave it at that for now, because it's a great question worthy of an entire episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And every decision plays into that. Everything, from a system to the classes, everything plays into that. So next one here from Random Rob. This is great. Question for Joppa. Are you really small in real life, or do you own the world's largest mugs?
That's wicked funny.
That's
Because I noticed earlier, he's got a huge pink mug.
This is actually my wife's mug, and I was laughing earlier because it was there. I wanted some water, and so I used it. I didn't realize it was actually like VR pink. It's kind of cool. But no, I would say it's not me being small in comparison to the largeness of the mug, although it is just a large mug.
I almost
we were trying to get him to use a
earlier.
Sharpie and make the VR logo, and then we're going to tell you guys that was our new merch, but we didn't get to that. The next one here is from Desrin Does. Says, question. So Fortress Devayer had some pretty good content density, especially when it comes to clickies. Can we expect that kind of density as zones begin to be fully built out? And plus, would this work have to wait for a dedicated world builder, or is that something that we're already working on?
I'll hit that one really quickly, and then I'd love for you to add anything you'd like to, JN. But the technical side of the question, no, it does not take a lot of time to do. We have some really amazing content creation tools that allow us to interact with the perception system and those elements of the perception system specifically very easily. And so anything from like a ping, those messages that will kind of pop up and alert you to something you should take notice to, or an object that you can pick up in the environment or interact with in the environment, all the way to setting up our dialogues for NPCs and conversations and the different flags and paths that those can go down. All of it through the tool that Robert Crane, our lead programmer, who we heard from last stream, he's put together, has just made that such an enjoyable process and a very productive one, design wise. So as far as like the density, like what we can expect in terms of how much density, I would say that it's an example of what we can do. It's not necessarily indicative of what every area will look like. You can expect some areas to be more dense than others for sure. But that's where I would kick it to JN and say, obviously there's a tie-in with how dense the lore and the context actually is with these different areas. So is there anything you want to add to that, Justin?
First, I would say that just echo what you said about Rob's work that has made all of this possible. I would think the word enjoyable is the right word to use when talking about how we can approach this. I would also say like freeing or liberating, because most of what we can imagine can be implemented in some form or fashion. And so that's where the second part, I would say that I'm happy with parts of how Fortress Devair came out and how it is right now too, and then how it was when we streamed it last. It's not finished at all, but I think there's a measure of refinement, and then also we're just always trying to find something that is familiar enough so that the player's not going into an area and almost having to relearn how to look around. Adam's been great in thinking along this, and we're going to need help from you all as we move through testing to get good feedback on like where are we basically training good instincts and good habits rather than just spamming stuff everywhere, because like CP just said, we can do a lot. We can make an area, as dense as we want. We could make every book on every shelf readable, and that would be a time sink for everyone and a waste of energy and resources. So I think it's a great example, just like Chris said, of what we can do. And then there are going to be areas that just naturally lend themselves to having more interactable objects, more interactable NPCs. But it's the same, we're kind of at the same place that I would say like conversations are at with NPCs, storylines are at with NPCs, where we're still exploring what is the right tempo, the right cadence, the right amount of everything from text on a screen to conversation
That's
paths to
true.
whatever.
I
All
do
of that
remember
has got to
that
be dialed in over time.
in Fortress
So it's a
Devair.
great
Some of the
example of what we
dialogue
can do.
was a little long.
I'm happy with parts of it, but we'll see how consistently we find areas in the world that justify that level of encounter and experience.
Excellent. Thank you. Next one here is from, I know I'm going to pronounce this one wrong, Enoch87. He says, once the full core systems are online, the network stack, HDRP in place, how will you tackle content push to build out the rest of the world? Do you envision outsourcing work to help with this?
Good
Couple
point
questions
about
in there. Kyle, do you want to take that first?
outsourcing.
I mean, which part of that would I take?
Networking stack, HDRP.
Well, they're asking once those are online, how will we do lots of content building?
Can you repeat the questions?
Yeah, no problem. It was a big one. So the first part is once all, HDRP, networking, once all that's in place, obviously the next step is content push. People are looking at when it comes to that content building and content pushing, building out the rest of the world. Do you think that we're going to need to outsource to do that? Or like, how are we going to tackle that as a team to really hit the pedal to the metal, so to speak?
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a couple of specific ways that we move faster, right? There's developing in-house tools that allow us to do work more quickly and be more productive. The better your tools are, the more work you can get done, the more quickly without having to fix and revisit. So that's one avenue. And on that, I would grade us as like an A+ right now. We have amazing tooling, and the work that we're able to get done is incredible. The other way you go faster is by having more people working. And so that's the constant kind of tension that we have, is we're wanting to move as quickly as we can. And to do that, we need to scale. And to scale, we need to, have the funds to do that. And so that's why you hear us, talking about, mentioning the crowdfunding efforts and, pledging to the development, things like that, because that's the other way that you move faster. The final way that you move faster is kind of maybe a play on the first piece, and that is just to make sure that you're working on a clean foundation and make sure that everything that you are building has everything that is yet to come in mind. And that's when we went, underwater, heads down for that period of time to refactor so much of the game. It's for that very purpose, to kind of get everything clean and load bearing and ready to receive everything that we were going to be building on top of it. So the main way we move faster right now with all the things that we now have in place is we're really poised to grow and scale as a team in terms of the headcount of the team. And we're very positive, about the outlook of being able to do that in a timely fashion. So I will leave it at that for now.
Awesome. Good stuff. Anybody else have anything to add on that? I mean, Kyle, you've kind of seen, as these tools have been put in, you've seen speed increase, I'm sure, across various systems. And
from, depending on the area that you're talking about specifically, I think design, since the Odin tool, and since now more recently the terrain tools have come online, I think design have been unblocked in a very real way. I think there were points where they didn't really know what they could do when they log in for the day, just because you can't add more stuff to a scene because it's already performance bound. It's difficult to work with some of was difficult to work with some of the back end stuff. That's just thing of the past now. So yeah, I think it's been a lot of wins in a lot of areas.
Awesome. So kind of, jumping on the same thing, we've had a lot of people asking some funding questions. One of the things we have to be very clear on is that there's nothing to announce right now. But I would say, without getting myself in trouble, that the excitement level is at a very high right now, with some great opportunities that are at least in the works. And when we are able to, I'm sure it'll be screamed from the mountaintops with how excited we'll be. Chris, you've kind of hinted at like, hey, we're ready to hire more people, right? We're getting to that point where I think in the past, Chris, you've said, hiring just to hire wouldn't really help the game in some of the states we were in. If we would have just brought in a bunch of people, it wouldn't have really pushed us to where we needed to be because other things needed done. So knowing that, once we get through some of these projects, like you kind of just said, it's going to be a time where, when that funding comes in from all your crowdfunding support, for all of you who head to pantheon.mmo, and pledge, or we just started the refer a friend, and I get it, but we know we have friends that have been checking the game out. Get yourself a little bonus from, letting them know you guys have always helped us there. So, between investment opportunities, between the progress being made, it's exciting. So I just wanted to make sure everybody, kind of knew that as these funding questions are coming in. It's kind of a broad stroke answer to the whole thing, but I think it's the best one we can give right now. So another thing here, and it's from F3KS1. Are racial actives planned? And if so, when can we expect to see them?
That's a good question.
So they are still planned. I cannot give an ETA on when you can expect to see them, but I can say that among the many evolutions that we're doing for our combat, racial stats are one of those. So you're going to see those of you who are VIPs at some point in the near future, you will see the racial stats a little bit more diverse than you've seen them in the past, and that is setting the stage for future racial diversification, which includes racial actives.
Awesome. I know people are excited for that. We've heard that question quite a bit.
Yeah.
Make sure they work, though. You don't want to end up with, that racial active that means if you like doing this, you have to be this. We want to make sure we don't. it's a balance thing. So, great question
Yes,
here.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Those things to come online. My goodness. My goodness.
Is it just so you don't have to keep answering questions about them? Or no, just kidding.
No. It's just it's going to be really fun. I'm really
awesome.
excited about it.
Yeah.
So, and
As
Chris,
we've
this
called
one
it,
is
Java
something
couldn't
where
wait
maybe
to
you
get that
can-
out.
I don't know. Can I set some expectations for? I mean, we can't give a date yet, but what people might see in the next pre-alpha session. But the question was from Mithras, Mithiris RS. I don't know.
Mithrandir?
Oh, he did. He said
JN.
excited. Everybody
JN,
drank.
watch this guy.
Just
Just to. It's the first one. All right. So to make, he says, just to make it official, he's looking for official here. Will Warrior be available in the next testing session?
Will the Warrior be available in the next pre-alpha testing session?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the question?
Yep.
The answer is no. And the reason is because our plan is to do our next pre-alpha session, kind of the final one of the year, as the
That's a hint.
kind of send off farewell to the current kind of state of the client with the current project. When we switch to the HDRP project, it is going to be such a massive kind of shift that we want, to make sure that it is fully and completely ready to do so, that, the classes are ready to be brought to bear in there as well. And so it's an opportunity for us to have one last chance to, have our pre-alpha session with the old build. Now, to be clear, this is not me saying that after that comes alpha. This is just me saying that after the turn of the year, that is when we make kind of our full swing into the new HDRP project.
That's good to know.
Obviously gets us very close to, much closer to the alpha point. But that is why you will not see those classes yet. But they will be coming not long after that.
Cool. Thank you. Coldfire989 asks, how's the pet system coming along? Has it been started yet along with the summoner?
So the pet system has not been started yet. That is the networking refactor is a prerequisite for the pet system. If you have not checked out our roadmap from previous producers' letters, as of the last month, October newsletter, we did update that roadmap, and that is now at least somewhat in priority order. So especially if you look at the programming items, you'll notice that pet system is actually sitting under the network stack, and that's actually in order of when we plan to address those items. In part because Kyle, who's on this call, is the person who is doing both the network stack and also the person who is doing the pet system. So, yeah.
There you go. Kyle, any comments on the pet system?
Just made the most sense to get the bigger stuff out of the way first, so it moved back behind some other larger.
By the way, all of that is on the Library of Pantheon.
People are gonna love it, though.
We have an alpha tracker.
That road to alpha list.
Yeah.
So it's load bearing, and so definitely pay close attention to that, and it is in kind of progressional order and everything as well. So it should be a really helpful tool to orient you to where we're at in the process.
Awesome. Next one here from Doug Bug 27 again says, what do you consider the sweet spot for the amount of text that's shown during a perception ping? Adam, that's probably right up your alley.
It is, but I'm actually kind of curious to hear what Justin's answer to this would be. I'm going to say a sentence, probably no more, and maybe less at times. And the reason for that is because of what those pings are intended to represent, with them being more hints and intuition from the player. I feel like having more text within a ping would just, diminish that a little bit.
Justin?
I'm going to say war and peace. Just those three words is probably enough. War and peace. I'm going to agree with Adam. Probably a sentence. That is what I would put in the bucket of things we need to refine and get down to, because it just can't be distracting. It needs to be easily digestible. And so part of that, if you've been in our PA sessions, is even with how it appears in a chat box, so that you have it with you kind of at a glance, even after it's faded, or if you've missed it. Let's say you ran across one that was in combat or something. Just having a voice. We want perception to have a voice that is unilateral throughout the world, and so brevity is the best for those pings. So I think that Adam said it well.
Awesome.
I will say though, I'll be surprised if we can keep it to a sentence. Just
Yeah.
to put that out there.
For all of them, anyway.
No more than 2 sentences. Like I would never want to see more than 2.
Yeah.
But I'm just throwing that out there. 1 line is not very much, so that's the goal. But
So it could be something like, you feel the cold air against you, but something's unsettling. Period. What could it be?
I would say that's
Question
actually
mark.
a pretty bad perception pig.
I'm not on the system. Don't worry, anybody watching, I have nothing to do with perception. We are all safe.
So all I know is that if we are going to have more than 1 sentence in a perception ping, it needs to be dynamically scalable. That way I can put in War and Peace and just fill up a player's page.
Mhm.
And that'll be our new PvP tactic. Just totally block
Totally
out your
lock up
screen.
their page file
That's a
and
great
basically
boss. That's a
lock
great
up
boss
them.
mechanic.
You can generate like something, an ability that just forces a ping on someone else, like basically hijacks their perception.
You like throwing snowballs, right? You're throwing pings at other players. Yeah.
Exactly. Pew pew ping ping. Same idea.
Nice. Oh, I love it. The next one here is from Courtroul. When the game launches, do y'all plan to have any type of interactive GM stuff, such as playing NPCs that interact with players, etc.? What happened? What happened to Chris?
I'm just thinking of some funny stuff. Yes, we do. On a serious note, yes. I'm just imagining some of the situations we can put some of our current people in. That would be really humorous.
If I could just steal stuff from people, like they don't even realize, that'd be so good. They can get it back through some quest.
I know, right,
won't write
Goofy?
the
I
quest
was
down,
like,
but-
honestly, this is
I
a
will
great
say that I
MMA,
think
but
with the
MMA,
kind of game that
AMA.
we're developing and the kind of game experience that it'll be, I think GM events could just be absolutely fantastic.
But again,
Lots of-
not to plug the library
I have a
again, but a
special
lot of
place in my
these
heart
questions
for
have
live
already been
events.
answered in the library.
In part because I'm a role player. Just that's my background among my many other backgrounds. But especially like having things that are more canonical, things that are not scripted necessarily, but help evolve the game and the game storyline and help emphasize what's occurring in the world. Lots of cool things that we can do there. And yeah, if we can do it, I would love to see it.
And I won't speak in various roundtables. Kilson does the roundtable. There's been, many people on that said, hey, if we're able to do it, I'll volunteer anytime needed. So there's a lot of passion from the developer team because of knowing in the past what those GM events meant, and to be able to kind of take that legacy forward where it feels like it's sort of been gone for a while. So I think internally people will be begging for it too. So it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The next one here is from Rodell. He says, how soon will we see the models in game for the other races like the Scar?
I would just check the alpha checklist, and it's something that we're committed to having done by the time alpha rolls around, and it's got its slot, and we're working towards it.
That's true.
Awesome.
Next
one is from
It's not
First
currently in
EQ1.
progress, though, I can tell you
They
that.
said, what would you say to anyone considering a pledge level with pre-alpha access currently in regards to alpha approach? That's a great question. He asks, will you cut off pre-alpha pledges when it gets closer to alpha, when the pre-alpha perk is potentially short of life? So I can add a little bit here. We have our curator helping, and good comment here from our curator of the questions. The answer sort of is that we still have plenty of pre-alpha time left, and we believe very strongly that it's still worthwhile to be a pre-alpha member, that you're going to get good testing time that we're going to need, and there's a lot that we're going to need from that community still. And this is an interesting comment here, but even if there was only, and we're not saying this is a fact, but even if there was only one PA session left, whatever that last one would look like, it's going to be long. Like it'll be a long session that will have a lot of value. So, Chris, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Well, I would just say to expect too that when we say there's a lot of PA testing time left, I mean, yeah, obviously that can be taken as, well, does that mean that we're looking, at a long time before alpha? And that's not so much how I think of that answer. It's really more of how the pre-alpha testing sessions will kind of evolve and change as we get closer to alpha, meaning that they're going to be happening more rapidly. They're going to be for longer, more rapidly, meaning there won't be as much time in between. The amount of game that will be there and needing to be tested fully is going to grow exponentially, pretty quickly and pretty steadily as we move into the new year. So what it means to be a pre-alpha tester is going to deepen and broaden very substantially in the coming months. So yeah, I think there's a whole lot of worth left for sure for picking that up.
Great job with clarifying that too. That was a good point. I didn't want to, all of a sudden Minus says their alpha is forever away. No, I didn't. So thank you, Chris, for saving me from that. The next question here is from Captain Bardo. Says, how much of alpha will become company assets?
How much of alpha will become
our own assets versus
right.
Unity assets?
So I want to make a clarification here.
Here we go.
Because I've seen this enough that, and without knowing exactly what I have said on this topic historically, which now that the Library of Pantheon is open, I'm sure I can go and find out exactly what I've said.
Nice plug.
It. Which is plug. But it is not so much that we have an issue using Unity assets. They are there for that reason, that we use them early on to help us prototype more quickly. We may still continue using them and may even launch Pantheon with some of those still intact. The key is, do they fit? Do they work? An example is the Halnir Cave modules. Those cave modules are a Unity asset, but they happen to work really, really well as caves. And we've also done a ton of custom stuff with them, with the textures, the materials, the lighting, how we've used the layout and used some of our own assets in conjunction with those to create looks and contours and aspects of those areas that you wouldn't find just using assets on the store. There's nothing wrong to us with utilizing Unity assets where it makes sense. The problem is when you start leaning too heavily on Unity assets such that your bespoke pieces and your very unique, identity carrying pieces aren't that. They are also Unity store assets. That's when you start running into an issue. And that's where we're, going to be making sure that we have, the emblematic pieces and all the pieces that we need to make sure Pantheon is its own. But there's a lot of art that MMOs need, and wherever we can find, sources of that, especially if you're talking more mundane items in the world, I don't think anyone should care, in my opinion, that they're going to see a crate and say, well, that's not a VR crate. So
I challenge people to figure that out. Actually, that would be the more impressive.
You have to have a high enough perception skill.
Yeah.
This crate seems odd.
I feel like I've seen this crate before in another universe.
You perceive a link to a website. The other question being about like crowd or outsourcing, and outsourcing is a really powerful vehicle that we have in our arsenal as well. It's something that needs to be managed very carefully. It's something that can also at the same time be a huge boon to getting the large amounts of art finished that we need. We're not planning on all of our art being outsourced. Obviously, we need that core internal team driving the identity and the visuals of the game. But there's a lot of additional art that, with the right kind of oversight and leadership, we can utilize some outsourcing options to really, really great effect. So the answer to the question, by alpha, we will not have any gray box by the time alpha launches. But yeah, you could still see some Unity assets here and there that we've deemed fit enough with the art style of the game and work well enough for our purposes.
That's a good answer.
And JN,
That's a good
the passion you put into
clarification.
the history of the world,
Much needed.
and the lore, as Chris sort of said there, having those built, assets that we need to have to be able to make those moments of discovery stand out, you couldn't probably do with pre-built assets.
I think it depends. Oh,
No, go ahead.
did you hear me?
Yeah, you said you think it depends.
I think it depends. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to create a rock for a rock to work in in the game, but a hero piece, on the other hand, or something that signifies a specific race or whatever. Yeah, we want to tailor those and anchor those and make sure that's good. But a lot of environmental storytelling and fit is whether we make the rock natively or proprietarily or someone else makes it. It's about the placement and the person using it. So
Awesome. Next question here is from Morak. They say,
can you
when it comes to
imagine
terrain streaming,
Goofy just
in the
seeing
last
like a
stream we
cave
saw a level of
troll
detail
in
broken up into
Pantheon?
squares. Does this apply vertically as well? And if not, will this eventually impose challenges when incorporating more detail into areas of verticality? For example, they reference the Tower of the Reckless Magician.
So that what you saw is for purely loading off of disk. Once something is in the level of detail 0 level, so the highest quality, a more fine-grained level of detail, frustum color, distance color kicks in at that point, just for managing the high level of detail squares. So it scales vertically for log 0, but we don't bother running those more expensive systems for the further away squares. So yeah, we're covered.
Awesome. And those squares are very big. It's when you see them from above like that, those squares of terrain loading are huge.
Yeah, they're massive.
Yeah.
And there are 4 level of detail 0 squares at any given time. So the one that you're directly over and the 3 closest squares to that one that you're in. So there's always 4 very large tiles attempting to stream in the highest quality detail stuff around you.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that, K-Lock, because it's my
Awesome. The next one
understanding
here is an
that
interesting question.
that's been
JN
pushed
and
off
Duffy,
till
where I get to,
post-release,
jump in on this a little
which
bit,
is
but
unfortunate because I love that
Jay
zone.
Tsunami. They said, can we expect that all the locations that were highlighted in the lore piece, The Bait, to be expected at launch? Tricky one.
there's no way I am taking the lead on this, in part because I did not vet any of those locations with CP before I put them in. So there is no way I'm going to say they're going to be in at launch. The benefit of them is that they are islands.
They're not.
Well, okay, the Vels are an island or an island chain, so maybe we have a chance of that. I mean, I can say some of them because one of them is a starting city, so the beginning is a starting city. The sea and the storm is in Dothane's mind, so that you have to get into some serious RP to go there. And then the Petrified Forest, that I believe will be in at launch, but I'm gonna leave that to CP. But that's part of rainfall proper, so I can't say with 100% certainty. So now that I have just done what I said I would not do, CP can speak and correct me.
I think that's a great answer, man.
I love it. I love just that. Such a real moment right there, right? Like that's game design, right, Chris? You talk about it all the time.
Oh, totally. And most people probably don't know that, like, Jayan and I are probably, best friends in real life.
Yes. Yes.
And so there's some relational equity that's that inevitably comes through when we get on things like this together. But yeah, I trust Justin implicitly as far as his discretion with things like that. And the cool thing about this is with our new approach to terrain streaming and the tech that we're utilizing, and now the open world nature of the world, I am much less hesitant, much more open about seeing places spring up. I was actually having a conversation with Sacred Tyler earlier today about a particular tweak of a particular POI in a particular area, and how
Chris, I'm going to need you to be less specific. We're not sure yet.
Yeah, I appreciate you holding me to that. But how we have such freedom to do whatever we want to do as far as maneuvering that, placing that, especially when we're talking about things like islands or things off the coast. It's really an amazing thing. So I would say that my goal would be that any place that we've been able to speak to directly in the lore would be available. I mean, obviously available at some point in the game's life, but the more of these iconic places that we can have available at launch, I mean, it's just a really important the relationship. As we get closer to launch, I fully expect Pantheon's lore to permeate and become something that more and more people, and people that probably don't have any expectation that they will be interested in something like lore because maybe they never have before. The relationship between the lore of our game and the game and the experience in the world that we're building, very, very significant. And so I expect the moment when you walk into the Burning Sanctum or the Silent Sanctum and you kind of start breathing in the history of what has happened there, and the way that like the myths and the legends and the stories of the world permeate through the player base and through the player experience. It's going to be really important for these places to be brought to life. And so that's the goal for sure.
Dibs on being cast in the movie. The next question here is going to be from Fire Grill. So I'm going to read it. It's here. Using a rough percentage guesstimate. So how much of individual assets are mitigated to or migrated to HDRP already? And they said, at risk of sounding dumb, was this already done? I'm just making sure I don't. That's what they said. So just in case the question was, it's done already. But any comments that you or Kyle could add to that?
It's definitely not done already.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Kyle?
Oh, no, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, it's not done already. I would say if I had to give a rough estimate, I would say probably about 20% of the total assets at this point. But bear in mind, like, that has not been an immediate focus of ours. It's actually becoming my immediate focus as of tomorrow. Which Kyle, by the way, I need to
no worries.
with you and go over a couple pieces of that. But that's something that once we do start focusing on that, it really shouldn't take a long time. The key, though, is that we have the pieces converted already that we need to begin, kind of the development processes that we need. So when we're thinking about things like the combat evolutions and tweaks that are being worked on, and what's needed in the new project to get that rolling, we're in good shape. And now it's about bringing the whole host of it in and making that ready to go. So that is you'll see me reiterate that in the producer's letter. That's definitely becoming a big focus of ours right now.
Awesome. I love how we're doing this live. Like, and Kyle, we're gonna have a meeting about that.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. It's how you do it. Got to use every second we have, even if it's live. Next question here is from Garthorn Ironstar. It says, during the HDRP stream, you mentioned that the overworld would be entirely seamless except for teleportation and summon abilities, which would require a loading screen to stream in the collision and terrain data. Would it be possible to have the teleport summon spell itself trigger a preload of the collision terrain data to eliminate the need for a loading screen? Kyle, that sounds like a you question.
Yeah, so there actually isn't necessarily a load screen tied to a teleportation or a summon ability. It's just anytime the streamer requests an asset off disk that we've marked as required for simulation. So that there's a good chance that would happen if you teleported across the world, but there's also a chance that it would happen if your hard drive was really, really bad and your movement speed was really, really high and you legged it across the zone and your hard drive couldn't keep up with the requested asset loads, if that makes sense. So it's not necessarily tied directly to a teleportation or a summon ability. It's just tied to you not having a required asset loaded at the time that your game thinks it's necessary to be loaded. To answer your actual question, though, not really. We can't necessarily preload it because we can't always account for it. Like, there's not always a lead up to the event of a teleportation, for example. So, say a GM /summons you or something. That's just instantaneous. Your client wasn't able to predict that it was going to be in a new location immediately. There are other cases that, yeah, we probably could preload stuff and maybe we do it. But honestly, you're looking at seconds of a screen at this point. Yeah. Because the required for simulation assets is just the collision, which is the minuscule part of what's actually being loaded. It's tens of megabytes for a tile versus the potentially gigabytes of data for the rendering side of things. So textures, the terrain, NPC models, animations, audio, all of that other stuff is the actual bulk of what's being loaded. And none of that's actually required for the simulation. So none of that needs to be behind a load screen. So that's
awesome.
That's my answer for that.
I mean, it's currently, when I hop from like Thrown Fast to Fairtail, for example, it's like
SSDs are so fast these days.
a second and a half.
And that's only if you teleport. Like if you were to just run, then there would be no.
And it's like, at that point, who cares?
Like it's able to buffer in around you with those colored squares from the previous stream that you saw. If something is loaded in a blue or a green tile, then it's not required for the simulation yet until it hits the LOD 0 tile, which is what I'm on, the high quality tile. At that point, if it's still not done loading, then we've got a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even running around the game world at 300 or 400% movement speed, which is an amount of movement speed that players will never have, regardless of what they have access to. I can run, which, by the way, absolutely amazing. Being able to run from Thrown Fast to Fairtail seamlessly, so cool. But I can do that without a hitch. So pretty cool.
Awesome. And just last piece on that too, we have actually said as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, that some of the dungeons may still be a load in. Again, it may not take as much time, but it might not be seamless to get into some of those dungeons or to build those out, if that's correct, right?
Of course, yeah. So we're talking seamless on the continent that you're on. So if that requires you to go to another continent or to an isolated zone that is separate from a continent, then there's a load screen there. Yep. Although they're very minimal now because, again, it's still just loading the necessary for simulation data, which is generally just collision data and code.
Awesome. Well, everybody, that's our hour. We hit it right. It's literally right on the money here. So a couple things.
Way too fast.
It did go fast. I feel like we could do this for a few more hours. Ben's like, no, just kidding. So it's something we could definitely do in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I do really appreciate for all the fans out there and everybody who came to Twitch, whether you're discovering Pantheon for the first time or you followed us and support us. Really appreciate the flow of the questions. It was awesome. I know that we can't get to all of them, but keep asking the questions in our different social media. Stay connected with us on there. If you want to help support this game, we've said it a few times, it is invaluable what you're able to do with a simple pledge. It means the world to us. PantheonMMO.com. check it out, see what's there for you. There's some cool things. It doesn't mean you have to become a VIP tester, but if you want to, it's there for you. There's a lot of options. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that came on here to answer these questions. Chris, thank you. Adam, Kyle, JN.
I know, he didn't say it like Ben says it.
I appreciate all that. And we pretty much answered every question that we had there. The ones that we had queued up, we didn't shy away. So I do appreciate that. And hopefully everyone on Twitch, you guys enjoyed that. So any closing remarks from anybody before we head out for the night?
I would say, like, for the VIP tester community, let us know if you feel like this kind of format is something that we should do more. It doesn't also have to be a talking head stream every time. It could be this with a mixture, or while there's gameplay or different kind of spotlights going on with the game. We're at a kind of a place right now where it was helpful with everything that we kind of have in process and in transition right now to do this month. But we hope that it was helpful, and there's so many more topics that we can speak to directly. So if this was something that was appreciated and you'd like to see more of, then let us know.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate, again, all your support. And next week we'll have the newsletter coming out, so you get your alpha updates, where we're at on that path, and some other fun content that I'm excited about, but I'll leave it at that. I know Chris is excited about as well. So again, thank you, everybody. It was an awesome time tonight. Thanks to the community, and we'll see you guys very soon. Until next time.
See you guys.
See ya.
See everyone.
All right. And as usual, I'm going to switch back over to here so we can kind of debrief a little bit. I'm going to hang out. Welcome to the after show where let's go through, let's chat just a little bit about what they talked about. Let's hit the highlights. I was taking some notes. I don't know about you, but I was jotting down some notes. Hey, Real Fazul. Welcome to the after show. Yeah, that was pretty good. Like you said, there definitely were some questions that have already been answered multiple times. It didn't really teach us anything new. And again, I certainly don't blame people for asking those questions, because again, like I had said at the beginning of the stream, I am keenly aware of how time consuming it is to follow Pantheon's development, and people miss things, and that's fine. And on the other side, for that reason, it's okay for the developers to repeat themselves. It's just it might just be a little bit of a pet peeve of mine personally, knowing so fresh in my memory that a lot of the questions, not a lot, but a handful of the questions that were asked tonight have been answered even recently and are available in the library of Pantheon. Again, www.libraryofpantheon.com. If you head over there, a lot of the answers to your questions will be there. Like I said, even recently, because the devs do put out a lot of content, and there's a lot of good information in there. So again, I realize it will take some time, but that's just my personal dream, maybe a little bit of my hope, that given enough time, we, sorting through the information that we already have available to us, we can have more productive conversation with the developers and just among ourselves. We can really, be asking the important questions. But so with that in mind, there are a few. We did get some valuable new information out of this stream that I want to kind of review here and make sure that it doesn't slip through the cracks. Hey guys, I see a lot of new people joining in for the after show. Welcome, guys. Good to see you. I see Pi. I see Sacred there. Oh, thank you, Sacred, for the reminder. Always got my back. For the library, for those of you, I'll save you a little bit of time. I'll drop the link in the chat there below. Thanks for the reminder, Sacred. If you haven't checked out the library yet, there's the link. Head on over and bookmark that, because it's a tool that we now have at our disposal, and so hopefully it's something that you will be referencing multiple times. You know, like if you're having a conversation in Discord or on the forums or whatever, have the library right next to you to find more information and share. Again, that's the key, is sharing this information. Copy paste those links to a YouTube video. We have all the YouTube videos that VR has put out. Each time the developers answer a question, that has been timestamped specifically to that part of that YouTube video. So you no longer need to scrub through these 2-hour long videos. We've marked every time the developer has spoken specifically, and so you can copy that link and go directly to that answer. So again, it's like ease of access to that information. All right. Again, that's my little plug, a little bit of a rabbit trail, but let's get back on track here. I'm just going to start from the top. One thing that they talked about earlier in the stream was the speed of progression, which is a huge question. The speed of leveling, the rushed end game that we see in a lot of MMOs. It's a complex topic, and I think Joppa is right that in order to really sufficiently answer that completely, that will take a whole hour. That would take the whole show to really dig into that. But I think that would be worth doing at some point, because and to some degree, the proof is in the pudding, and we'll have to. It really won't sink in until we actually see it firsthand and experience it firsthand. But it's so important. I really just wanted to underscore how critical that topic is, because, like the question said, for so long, so many MMOs have not gotten it right, and players have become so accustomed to just the leveling process not being interesting, and just it's such a gut reaction now, the players feeling this urge to just, okay, how can I grind through this as quickly as possible, because it's all about the rating. Like, that's just ingrained in our minds now. And so if Pantheon can effectively kind of unwind that and really nail it and get that leveling speed right, where it's actually enjoyable, that alone, regardless of anything else in the game, pretty much, if they can get that right, I would go as far to say that would send shockwaves through the genre. That would really get people's attention and really make people stop and think, wow, this game is different, and there's really something interesting here. Like that alone has the potential to be Pantheon's claim to fame in a way, regardless of the other systems. Pantheon could be known as the MMO that made leveling fun again. So I think that's just, I just wanted to kind of highlight that point there, because it's something that I think about quite often, and I think it's really interesting seeing so many players just get into this habit of skipping through leveling, like it doesn't even matter, because that's how games are designed, and as a game designer myself, I don't design video games, but as I design board games and my background is in psychology, and so it's something I spend a lot of time thinking about is game design. Essentially it's essentially mind control in a way, that you are designing this experience that will make your players feel a certain way and think a certain way. It sounds maliciously manipulative, and it's not, because we play games to have fun ultimately, but the way that you design a game really has a very real impact on the way that it teaches players to think based on what is rewarded and what is penalized. And I think that's fascinating. And what we are seeing now is the result of people's brains literally being programmed to just ignore leveling, because we have been taught over many, many years now that it doesn't matter. And, so people wanting to be most efficient and not waste time on things that don't matter, just expect to skip it. And so it's really, really special when you can design a game that puts a stop to that and really undeniably puts it in front of their face that this is not that type of game. It might not be for everybody. Some people just might not be a fan of it at all, and that's fine. But if you can really make them pause and actually think in a different way that they haven't thought in any of the other MMOs that they've played, that's when you're onto something. So anyway, enough about that. The big thing, really arguably the biggest takeaway from this stream was a little bit of hinting about dates, actually, which I thought was cool. That Joppa has confirmed that there will be a pre-alpha test before the end of this year. And Minus said that the announcement for that will be going out soon. So I don't know. It's probably going to be somewhere in December, based on what Joppa was talking about, that it's a big kind of send off. I can almost imagine kind of, that feels good too. Maybe around Christmas time, it's like the Christmas gift to the community. And that's a good way to kind of cap off the year, have a nice little pre-alpha test. And then with that, also talking about the HDRP big transformation. He was really selling that, don't you think? I was almost a little taken aback about how Joppa was really feels strongly that it's going to be like this night and day transformation, that the game is going to supposedly just look completely different. That's exciting, but those are big words. It's there's something to keep an eye on for sure. So it sounds like that's going to be kind of the beginning of the new year, new game, I guess. Or at least new look. That could be a really exciting way to kick off that year. So sorry, I'm just catching up on chat. You guys are very chatty, which is awesome. I want to miss it. One other thing that I thought was interesting, and this is more of just kind of like a request for more information, I guess, that toward the end when they were talking about the seamless overworld, which is great. I'm a fan. The more I learn about it, the more I am a fan of going with the seamless world. But one thing I thought that was actually kind of puzzling, and Sacred, if you're still in chat, I don't, maybe if you could chime in on this, because it sounds like Joppa was talking to you about this, but Joppa made it sound like it was relatively easy to add in new content to the seamless world. Like if you want to go back and maybe add in like a POI or a certain area of a zone. Maybe I was misunderstanding, but that stood out to me because actually looking back, one of Brad's really his main critique actually of having a seamless world was that it was, in his opinion, more difficult to add in content later, which made a lot of sense to me. And I think that's really the only concern I guess I would have about a seamless world, is that later down the line, even post launch or whatever, like in an expansion, if you want to maybe add in a new zone that wasn't there before, or maybe, you know, move something around, or like specifically insert an area maybe between two existing areas, but with a seamless world you would have to like reshape the terrain to make room for that, right? As opposed to where if you have a zoned world, they all exist essentially independently as building blocks, and you just kind of like tie them together. But it seems in my mind a lot easier, like you could pick up, you know, a singular zone and then just move it over a little bit and plop a new zone in between and then just tie them together, you know what I mean? And then the zone lines still work, as opposed to a seamless world where it just kind of exists as one big chunk, and that seems a lot less maneuverable. If again, with Pantheon's lore, I can see it very much being a possibility that later down the line you might want to change the landscape. But if you want to add something in, it seems like it would be a lot easier to just plop in like a modular zone rather than having to resculpt everything. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but I think that would be I think that would be a topic of conversation that would be worth the devs explaining a little bit better, because if there really is a good solution already planned for that sort of thing, then I think that would alleviate a lot of the concerns, at least for me, about the downsides of having a seamless world. Goofy says, I don't know if you've seen games do this, but I've seen games where they actually can allow you to log into the game before all the game assets are even downloaded. I have played games like that, and I think that's cool because you don't need to, like, when you're first installing a game, one of my favorite things about that tech is like you don't need to sit and wait for like however long, whether it's like 30 minutes to an hour or whatever, however long it takes to download all of the assets for a game and install them onto your computer. It used to be that it would have to go through the entire process before you could even log in, but now they just kind of have like, there's like the minimum required, like these are really the only assets you need to start playing the game, and then you might only download and install part of the game, but you can still log in and create your character and get started, because once you've met that minimum threshold, and then the rest of the other things that you're not going to need for a while are just kind of then downloading in the background. Like, I get that. I'm not sure. I can't think off the top of my head how that would affect inserting, like from a development standpoint, inserting new zones into a seamless terrain, but oh, this suggests that it's actually possible for the devs to add content while people are playing, and the stuff will just appear as they get added and downloaded. I guess, but then, like, what if somebody is like in a location? What if people are playing in a location that they want to change? And then, like, do you run into situations where like one player is seeing one version of that area and somebody is seeing another version? I guess if it streams quickly enough, that wouldn't be the case, but still, I feel like you'd still probably have to like take the servers down to update the game if that's what you're talking about. But still, I'm just talking about from a developer standpoint. Like, you literally would have to move mountains literally if you wanted to insert like an entire new zone that was not there before, that for whatever reason in the lore, if you wanted to add an entire zone in between two other areas, you literally would have to cut a hole in the map and spread it out and then add the new content in, which when you're dealing with everything else that's connected to it around it, because again, it's all seamless, that seems like a lot. That seems like not a small task. Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean, Goofy, where like if you're just tacking on an area which from what we've seen of the map of King's Reach, like they have those, there's lots of like little pockets that are kind of tacked on to the outside border of King's Reach that are locked for post-release, which makes sense. Okay, like I do get that. If you're just gonna tack something on to the edge, that makes sense. That's easy. But my question was specifically like, once you create a landmass, like that's pretty much locked in, right? Like you can't then go in and insert, like if you decide later on for whatever reason, I don't even know what that reason would be, but if it ends up being important to add content, add area, add landmass to the existing seamless landmass, that seems like that would be very difficult. All right, Sacred says, I think the tech of those comments before was correct, but has been a bit since then. Simple answer is yes, we have great programmers who have created tools that enable the design team to do some really neat things and quickly. I guess that is a fair point, that the tech probably has changed. Even since Brad was talking about it. So yeah, because tech changes very quickly. It could have changed even in the past couple of years. So yeah, I guess that's a fair point. Hypercrush says, I think they'll probably try to avoid adding new zones into the middle of existing stuff. Well, yeah, that's kind of my point. I would think so. I think they would have to. I don't, because it seems like that would be a lot more difficult. So, if you can avoid it, that's great. I'm just trying to think of potential scenarios where that might be detrimental to not really have that as an option. Rush D2112 says, don't forget there are different dimensions to creating a zone. You could theoretically build a new zone on a higher or lower plane, not accessible until it's ready to be implemented. That's true too. You know, and that, thinking about how Pantheon especially is a very vertical game too, with the climbing system and everything, that does allow you to kind of add in content like accessing some sort of mountaintop or something that wasn't accessible before. That could be interesting. That could be a pretty decent solution. Kind of drop some vertical content where there wasn't any before. That could be cool. Pi says, I'm just surprised that they can go seamless based on performance in Unity. Yeah, I think that surprises a lot of people. I think Unity has kind of like a bad rap in that regard, but that's why it's so cool that VR has a unique relationship with the Unity team directly, and that a little bit of ingenuity is allowing them some pretty amazing workarounds, actually. I think when they really start showcasing that more broadly, and not even just talking about it. It's one thing to say we have a seamless world, and that's really intriguing to us who have been following the game closely. But when they really start showing that and really broadcasting it and saying, yeah, we did this in Unity, I'm pretty confident that that's gonna blow some people's minds. That'll be a cool moment. Yeah, for sure. Well, on that note, I just looked at the time. It's getting a little bit late for me, so I should probably head out. But we will leave that. We will leave with that to look forward to in our minds, and we'll also look forward to the next newsletter, which will be coming out pretty soon here. And that will give us, like they were saying, the latest updates on everything else that they've been working on behind the scenes to get closer to alpha. Keeping our eye on the prize there. You can be sure that I will be posting the recording of this video on my YouTube channel probably tomorrow. I also have a video in the works to kind of introduce you more to the Library of Pantheon and kind of give a demo of how to use it and everything that's available there. So we've got that. I'm going to be covering any other news that comes out, and now also taking the information that they put out and adding it to the library. So again, if nothing else, if you just want to use the library as a tool to kind of make it a little bit easier to stay up to date, in the loop with everything that the developers are putting out, we'll have the timestamps for every question that was asked in the AMA tonight. That will all be added to the library. I don't know when, but hopefully pretty soon we'll have that available. So if you want to go back and re-listen to any of their answers to the specific questions, we'll have that as well. So with that in mind, again, thank you very, very much to everybody who came to hang out tonight. This was a blast. This was very enjoyable. I look forward to seeing you elsewhere in the community, maybe at the library, in the library Discord also. I don't know if I mentioned that, actually. We have a Discord server set up specifically for the Library of Pantheon, again, to really... We've already had some great conversations in there. It's a great group of people. It's growing very quickly, and that is my favorite place to talk about Pantheon right now, because, again, everybody has such a wealth of information available to them now. So it's some really good conversation. So maybe I will see you there. So until then, everybody, please have a great night, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.